Nyaya ye bill number 3 unova uri mutemo wakasainwa navamnangagwa iri kuramba ichidzoka uyezve uchiunza hurukuro munyika yeZimbabwe. Naizvozvo pane mashoko aunzwawo nemumwe wevarakash for ET akandawo mashoko aya kubva kusocial page kwake achiedza ye kujekesa zviri pachena sezvo makakavadzano ari kuramba achimuka muZANU-PF. Kune vamwe vasiri kunzwisisa kuti zviri kufamba sei ende vamwe vari kuti is VP Chiwenga sidelined nenhau yekuti matsananguriro kana kuti matauro azvinenge zvichiitwa tiri kuona isu sekunge vaChiwenga vakaiswa pasi pebhazi. Why tiri kudaro? Naizvozvo pari kubudiswa panapa kuti pabill number 3 apa yakachinja yavari kuti VP hierarchy kureva kuti vice president hierarchy waoneka kuchinjwa kwakaitwa. Vari kuti ivo pamutemo watikaisa uyu tinoti isusu mutevedzeri webato anoshanda iye kana president achinge afa kana president achinge aresigna oro kana achinge aremovwa from the office, vice president anotora that position iyoyo within 30 days anenge ari muoffice yapresident, right? Then ma-MPs ndo achazotsigira kuti sezvo ava vafa kana kuti sezvo ava varesigna kana kuti sezvo ava vabudiswa pachigaro, vice president iwavo ma-MP vakaona kuti vachiri kuvada, vice president ndo pavanofaita mutungamiri. Saka ndo imwe nyaya zvekare iri kunzi nevanhu hapana apa budirai pachena Chiwenga kuti mimi makamutsotsa chinhu ichi. Ndo nyaya tiri kuda isusu kurikura tiri pamwe chete pano paZim Local News kubva kupost yaiswa nevarakash for ED. Kana muchida kuona kuti nyaya iri kuramba ichitaurika yeCA3 why nyaya iri kuzoramba ichidzoswa mudariro, mashoko yakanyora nezuro kusocial page kwake ndo zvamuri kuona pascreen apo. Pakaipa kugochana kwebato reZANU-PF riri kuzvikanga rega. Nyaya iyo tiri kuda isusu kuikurukura tiri pamwe chete nhasi ende tichavimba kuti muchange muchizosubscribe television yedu yeZim Local News. Nhasi musi wa18 August Tuesday 2026 tirimo muZimbabwe muHarare. Special thanks for choosing our YouTube channel, the news channel. Tiripo pano patinenge chane the political analysis, right? Saka ndo mamiriro azvikaita inside Zimbabwe asina kumira zvakanaka. Ndo nyaya iri kuramba ichidzoka mudariro apa ichanzi cab 3 yakunziyo CA3 constitutional amendment number 3, right? Saka tukuona isu kuti general Chiwenga kukandwa kwavo kwepasi pebhazi why tichidaro nenhau yekuti vari kuti ivo pasection 100 yeCA3 yavo, CA3 yakadeleta the word first and repeals the provision referring as a second vice president. This abolishes the former first VP or second VP hierarchy. Although the president may assign different responsibilities to each VP, they remain equally in constitutional status. Right, then by section 101, if the president dies, resign, or is removed from office, the sole vice president, or where there are two VP most recently nominated to act under section 100, temporarily act as president. This designation is merely continuity mechanism. It does not make that a VP senior any higher appearance for the substantive president, right? Saka vari kunzi ivo vice president ndo pavanoshanda vanongoacta chete within 30 days vari muoffice pachimirira kuti patsvagwe mumwe president kwese. Saka uchimini pakabviswa mutemo uyo waiti kana president achinge abva uyo anosara achipinda achikontinya ndiye atova mutungamiri. Saka maona maitiro azvikaitwa medzi dzacho. Saka ndo pari kuti nevanhu makavhara munhu Chiwenga makamutsotsa. A major constitutional development is now generating fresh debate over the future of Zimbabwe's ruling party ZANU-PF and in particular the balance of power between the country's vice president. To focus in the Constitution of Zimbabwe, Amendment number 3 Act of 2026, commonly referred as the CA3 or CAP 3. The big question is whether the new constitutional arrangement has changed the traditional understanding of the vice president hierarchy and whether that could have consequences for Vice President Constantino Chiwenga in the broader succession debate. Let us be clear from the beginning, the Constitution does not state that Vice President Constantino Chiwenga has been removed, demoted or stripped of his position. He remains Vice President. However, CA3 has changed the constitutional framework surrounding the Vice President, and that has opened a new political conversation about succession, executive power, and the future leadership of Zimbabwe. One of the most important issues concerns Section 100 and the constitutional treatment of the Vice President. The amendment framework removes the previous emphasis on the words first and second Vice President. This means that the Constitution no longer creates the same form of first Vice President and second Vice President hierarchy that many Zimbabwe have traditionally associated with the two positions. That is a significant development. For years, political observers have paid particular attention to Vice President Constantino Chiwenga because of his position as first Vice President, his political history, and his influential within the ruling party ZANU-PF establishment. Vice President Kempo Mohadi has occupied the other vice presidential position, creating what appeared to be clear order of seniority. But CA3 changes the constitutional language around that arrangement. The important point is that constitutional quality does not necessarily mean political quality. The president can still assign different responsibilities to the vice president, and their political influence can remain very different. However, from a constitutional perspective, neither vice president can simply claim an automatic right to succeed the president merely because of a numerical designation of or a perceived scenario. And this is where the succession debate comes particularly interesting. Section 101 deals with what happens when a president dies, resigns, or is removed from office. Under the amendment framework, where there are two vice presidents, the mechanism provides for the vice president most recently nominated to act under the relevant constitutional provision to temporarily perform the function of president. But there is an important distinction that Zimbabwe needs to understand. Acting as president is not necessarily the same as becoming the substantive president. Temporary presidential authority should not automatically be interpreted as a permanent constitutional claim to the president. CA3 also provides a substantive successor to be selected through the constitutional process involving parliament. This fundamentally changes the way observer may have to look at presidential succession. For years, political discussion have often focused on the question of who occupies the first vice president position. But under the new framework, that question alone may no longer provide the answer. Instead, the focus could interestingly shift towards the political support, party structures, parliamentary numbers, and alliance. And that brings us directly to Vice President Chiwenga. There's no provision in the constitutional change that says Constantino Chiwenga has been removed from the succession race. There's no statement declaring that he cannot become president. But political observer can legitimately debate whether removing the former first vice president and second vice president distinctly reduces the constitutional significance that previously come with being the senior vice president. This is why some political commentators are describing the development as Chiwenga being thrown under the bus. However, that is a political interpretation and should not be presented as a lack of fact. The bigger issue is that CA3 appears to make vice presidential seniority less decisive when discussing presidential succession, and that could have a serious implication for political calculation inside Zimbabwe, inside ZANU-PF. Zimbabwean succession politics have never been determined by the constitutional provision alone. They are also shaped by party structures, political alliance, parliamentary support, government influence, and the ability of different political camps to build support. Therefore, even if the vice president have equal constitutional status, they can still have different levels of political influence. That makes Chiwenga's position particularly interesting. He remains one of our most prominent figures in Zimbabwean politics, but Constitutional Amendment number 3 means observer may now have to look beyond the simple question of who is first vice president. The bigger question remains: who has the political and parliamentary support to influence Zimbabwe's next presidential succession? That is a completely different calculation. The new framework could give the president greater flexibility in assigning responsibilities between the vice president without constitutional language establishing one is automatically superior to the other. Saka murikora kuti so far pari now tine two vice president, Chiwenga na Kembo Mohad, but pa vice president wavo uwa hapana kumbomeshenwa kuti first ndiani second ndiani, right? Hapana. Asi ruzhinji rweZimbabwe rinotungamidza Chiwenga pamberi, Kembo Mohad havanyanyo pay attention naye, but vese vice president. Saka ndozviri kunzi nemutemo wakauya uyu pa section 100 iri kuti iyo CA3 yakadeleta the word first and second, kureva kuti vice president vese vabatanzwa pachinhu chimwe chete. Mnangagwa nhasi akati aresigna nhasi, kana kuti nhasi akanzi ashaya, kana kuti abviswa muofisi, pachati netsei nekuti mutemo wavo uri kuti iwo unenge uchizosarudza mumwe chete vice president anofanira kuzombojegera ofisi yemutungamiri, pachisarudzwa mutungamiri nema MPs pa 30 days, right? Asi pamutemo ndo patiri kuti isusu hapana first or second. Saka ndiani anopinda tikati nhasi Mnangagwa aresign office, tiri kuda kumbotimbosare ina acting president watiri kuti president, ndiani anopinda pa already. Chiwenga havasi kumuda. Chiwenga vanomutarisa neziso dzvuku vachinyepedzera kumusekerera sekunge vachiri kudyidzana naye, asi vari kumusideline pazvinhu zvese. Saka muri kuona kuti ndo patiri kuzopinza isu mashoko ekuti is VP Chiwenga sideline, is VP Chiwenga sideline, ndo patiri kuzova that question tichibvunza. Rega tikontinue nebepa redu. At the same time, supporters of VP Chiwenga could urge that changing constitutional terminology does not erase his political influence. They may point to his long-standing position within the state and ZANU-PF, and urge that political power cannot simply be determined by changing a few words in the constitution. And that is why it would be premature to declare that VP Chiwenga has been politically defeated. The more measured conclusion is that CA3 has changed the constitutional framework within which the succession debate will take place, and that change deserves a serious attention. The debate is also much bigger than VP Chiwenga and Mohad. CA3 has generated wider political controversy over Zimbabwe's electoral and presidential system, including the rules surrounding presidential succession and the future structure of executive power. This means the amendment has implication for the entire political system. It raises question about how presidential succession will work, how much constitutional weight should be attached to the office of the vice president, and ultimately who will have the political influence to shape Zimbabwe's next leadership transition. For ZANU-PF, this could create a new political environment. Instead of focusing exclusively on who holds the title of first vice president, political observer may increasingly examine who controls party structure, who commands support, and who can build the alliance necessary to influence major political decisions. That is why the CA3 debate is unlikely to disappear. For Vice President Constantino Chiwenga, the message is equally significant. His constitutional position remains that of Vice President, but the argument that a first Vice President automatically stands above another Vice President has been weakened by the new constitutional framework. Whether that eventually becomes a genuine political disadvantage for VP Chiwenga is something that only future development inside ZANU-PF can determine. So yes, Mnangagwa CA3 throws him VP Chiwenga under the bus. Legally, we cannot make that claim, but political, CA3 has certainly changed the playing field. The old first vice president versus second vice president framework second vice president framework is no longer enough to explain Zimbabwean succession politics. If the succession battle intensifies in the future, the contest could increasingly revolve around political and party structures, parliamentary numbers, and the ability of combating camps to influence the direction of ZANU-PF. And that is where the real political story lies. CA3 may not have removed VP Chiwenga. It may not have demoted him. But it has changed the constitutional rules surrounding the vice president, and that could have significant consequences for how Zimbabwe's succession politics are understood going forward. The big question now is, who will benefit most from this new arrangement? Mnangagwa ere, Chiwenga ere, Mohadi ere, or the wider ZANU-PF leadership structures? Who will benefit the most? That is the political debate Zimbabweans will be watching closely. For now, one thing is clear: the constitutional landscape has changed, and the implication for ZANU-PF's internal power dynamics could become increasingly important. Thank you for watching. If you found this analysis useful, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notification and share this video. This is a political commentary and analysis. The constitutional implication discussed here should be distinct from claims about the intention or future action of any individual. Thank you very much for choosing our YouTube channel, Zim Local News. Keep on subscribe, tigare tiri pamwe chete tichipanana. Saka ndo mamira zvokaita ndo chigemu chacho. Ndo patodaiso kugara tabudirana pachena kuti Mnangagwa waka vhara munhu pachidhiri ichi buda pachena. Nenawe kuti handimukona mutemo wacho kunzi uyo wakabva wachinja vice president hierarchy, kureva kuti avari kuti ivo pa section 100 akuchisina first kana kuti second vice president. Sakuroti vamnangagwa pavanobuda munyika yeZimbabwe vachimbosira kembo muhadhi ari muofisi, mese munenge muri mavice president imomo. Vamnangagwa nhasi vakaresigna kana kuti vanhasi vakanzi vasiya vafa kana kuti varemovwa maofisi, mese munenge muri mapresident imomo. Hakuna kuti first kana kuti ningiri, kutogara nemacheya maviri mese muri imomo. Saka muri kuona chidhiri chacho ichi hachisi kubudirana pachena. Ko ESA chigaro chocho asina kuchita kuposition yake ya upresident. Why asina kuisa upresident Vairaj? Adecide kuuya ne uVP Vairaj. Charamba chikondinya tichipana na political analysis. Ngatirambe tiri pamwe chete.